Hey everybody, I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to make a video about James Joyce, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I've been really liking striking matches. I've been really enjoying like tearing out matches and taking them and pinching them here. And lighting them like that. And then I'll use them to light candles. And, I'll light a candle in these like crystal candle holders that I got from St. Vinny's. And when they get down this low, I think if the flame gets too close to the crystal, it will kind of crack it or something, or it can do some damage to the crystal. So right now, I'm probably gonna blow these flames out and put in new candles. But that's just by way of introduction to what it was like to read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Now, I should be able to go back through my texts and actually see the day on which I texted the person I'm reading this book with that I had finished it. So let me do that. So on Monday, March 20th, I texted the person I was reading the book with that I finished the book on Saturday night. I remember I finished it pretty late that Saturday night. So I finished it on March 18th. So I've put a note here in the back that I finished read number 1 on 3/18/23. I remember some friends and I were drawing in this copy. I love how those drawings, those were keeping me company as I was reading. They felt kind of schoolboyish somehow, and it added to the atmosphere. I noted down a couple things. At one point, there was a dream diary kind of feeling, and I keep a dream diary, so I liked that. Something reminded me of leaving the Atocha station. Phases of apprehension. I wonder what's on 212. And then on 61, I just thought that there was a funny running style. Yeah, while Stephen ran around the track in the style Mike Flynn favored, his head high lifted, his knees well lifted, and his hands held straight down by his sides. So that doesn't really seem like how I was taught to run. This is the copy I mostly read the book in. There's some notes that I did in here. It's a nice, totally noteless edition of A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I also have this copy that has notes in the back, and then I have this copy that's my favorite. It has notes as footnotes, and I love. Basically what happened was I got this in college, and I meant to read it. I remember it was like one of those Penguin classics that like looks really good and doesn't really cost as much as the other ones. It was just $11. But I always got bogged down in the start, and it was in my days of making notes on the books well before I understood anything about what was happening or really felt like I had an ability to kind of get into a groove with the prose or anything. So I would get bogged down in the first bits. And I remember thinking like maybe the book would get better as it went along. And then, when I finally read it, that first chapter and all the stuff that I guess was the kind of I got stuck on earlier on became the stuff that I loved the most. And as the person I was reading the book with, also my book partner was also we were also comparing all the other chapters to the first chapter, saying like, this, I think this one was as good as the first chapter, and these ones were like less pleasant than the first chapter. We basically came down on the side that basically 1 and 2 we really liked, 5 we really liked, as much as 1 really, and then 3 and 4 were kind of like a departure, like a little kind of novel within the novel that's not as sheerly pleasant. Not as merely, whatever the word is, not as purely pleasant. So anyway, I start reading the book in this. I love chapter 1. I love chapter 2. 3 and 4 are, they're tougher, but they're very rewarding because, and then in chapter 5, you get a lot of the best scenes in the book. You get this really long, good walk. You get this really cool diary section. You get this really cool stuff about some of the verse that he hears in his head and starts to actually compose. If you are a poet, you're gonna really love this book. You're gonna really relate to it because it's the finest description of like the formation of an artist who needs to be an artist that I've ever read. Basically, the thing I really want to say is that whenever I read it in this copy, I really enjoyed not having notes, even though there would be certain references I wouldn't understand, which is an experience I've been having again, rereading Hamlet in this portable Shakespeare. Because in the portable Shakespeare, which I bought because it was cheap and because it's beautiful, it has like this, this Tudor style house or whatever on the top. And it has Hamlet in the start. You read Hamlet without any notes, and it's actually kind of better if you're just trying to experience the play, because you're gonna be able to understand things on the whole. We don't really like read and reread things like Finnegan's Wake, where you can't really like understand it unless you have some guide there. We just really don't read things like that in our canon, I guess. We read things that are pretty standalone, I guess. And you'll understand more than you thought you could, and it's actually really pleasant. It allows you to lose yourself in the book. Yeah, so maybe more on that portable Shakespeare later. But back to this, yeah. I read this, and I liked the smallness of this edition. I got it at Half Price Books for just like $1.50 or $1.99 or something. Ended up having to do a repair job up here, used some Scotch tape there, and I think I also used maybe some packing tape, yeah, down here for the cover coming up down there. Packing tape is stronger for this, but this is kind of quicker, it's easier, it's quicker to hand. Those were good repairs. They basically made it so I could keep reading the book. I kind of cracked it at one point. I think I cracked it somewhere, I cracked it right here in the middle of the third chapter, where things are getting crazy. Things are getting really, hell or high water here. Yeah, but whenever I was reading and I felt like I really needed to have a reference explained, I would get out this old Penguin and I would flip to the back where there are extensive notes, like dozens of notes per, like 100 notes per, 50 to 100 notes per chapter. And so I would go and I would get my info from there. And then I would go back and have the nice portable little absorbing little reading experience that I would get here. The only time I ever got bogged down while reading was in the fifth chapter. In the fifth chapter is one that I've said is one of my favorite chapters. Although nothing can really top just the sheer, just the luxurious feel of that first chapter, which really is amazing. It really is for fans of of James Joyce as like a technical wizard. Basically, and if you don't know the conceit of how the chapters go, it's kind of like the prose style is kind of developing as he's developing. So, it gets philosophical when he gets philosophical, and it gets like Jamesian when he gets Jamesian, and it gets like overblown and patriotic when he kind of gets feelings like that. And at the start, when it has that wonderful, simple, childlike feel, it has a wonderful kind of Hemingwayan or song-like kind of quality, a children's book quality, and it's super immediate and sensuous, and I could read a bunch of things that are like it. But anyway, I kind of got bogged down in the fifth chapter, and during that, what saved me was picking up this copy and reading a bit in here, and I learned that this was my favorite. Not only does it have my favorite typeface, but it also has just a couple of important footnotes or notes on the bottom as footnotes, which is the perfect way to read while also getting some info without being kind of dragged out of the text into the back of the book like you get in this copy of the portrait. So I thought that was kind of interesting that my reading of the book ended up encompassing 3 different editions. I thought that might be interesting to you all. One of the things that's like really climactic about the first chapter is a conversation that happens between Stephen's family members about Ireland and religion that escalates to in a way that is really, really thrilling to see. You get chills, you start quaking in your boots, and you get really scared, on Stephen's behalf. You feel his kind of awe of the anger that's being expended over these questions, and that some of that momentum that gets stirred up in him is what kind of leads him to his religious and artistic certainty later on. And that's just one of the examples of one of the things that's so good about chapter 1. But yeah, so what have I talked about so far? I've talked about kind of my thought on the chapters, my thought on the editions I read. I talked about kind of notes and whether or not you need them. I really don't think you're going to need them, and an edition like this is fine. I don't know if I really want to spoil too much. This is a book that just has, pages and paragraphs and sentences and lines, basically every unit of composition, even on the level of the book. Like you look back and you just think, golly, like that is constructed in the right way, and it makes you want to kind of enjoy whatever unit you compose in, or read in, in those individual units. Contrary to what Michael Chabon says in his piece about this book, this is a book to be revisited, I think, and reread. I think it'll really open up when I reread it. It'll be all the work that goes into making this really memorable and like an actual memory of a real childhood and young adulthood. Will make it so it's like I'm encountering a photograph for the first time from people whose images are getting fuzzy. And I'll notice different things about their bone structure or whatever. And I think it'll be really awesome. And this is coming from someone who's a huge fan myself of Dubliners. So I'm already predisposed to love this kind of thing. My verdict on this is that it does not deserve its reputation, I think, as something that's harder to read, really, than Dubliners. I think Dubliners requires the same level of attention, really. That's what I think. And I think the only thing about this that makes it really challenging is that some of the, bits of... some of the ways that Dubliners gets grim and sludgy, in this, you're subjected to it on the scale of, 50 pages, rather than just, one, 10-page section of a story. So I still think that Dubliners is the better introduction, but I'm really grateful to have read this and will be reading it again. And I wish everyone, happy reading and have a good day.